Welcome everybody to our Sacred Self-Healing Workshop special called Karma of Love. My name is Jona Bryndis. You guys all know me, and today we will be discussing a very popular topic. We are still in 2024. This is the 14th workshop in the series Building a Bridge Between Spiritual and Material Worlds. And of course, all the previous workshops and trainings that are available to you if you are a member of the Sacred Self-Healing community that contribute to this particular workshop that we're doing here today. Just a brief overview of what we have been discussing already this year since the beginning of the year. We have been talking about awakening issues, so what the problems are when we enter our spiritual journey and what the things are that confuse us, that overwhelm us, and how to best deal with them. Then dove a little deeper into the issues with perception that we can uncover once we realize, okay, there's a part of me that can supersede the ego, that can supersede, my desires and my fears and so forth, and that's actually desirable for me to cultivate this a little bit more, to connect with my true self and to live a more authentic life. So these are discussions that we had in the workshops Perception, Issues with Perception, which is very recommendable for you. And then parallel to that one, we had a workshop series called Electrification and Etherization, where I go into the advanced spiritual and esoteric concepts, the spiritual science behind sort of the bigger issues on our journey, like what all this is for, what the divine evolution is, where this is all headed, not just for us as individual, but also for our entire human collective as of right now, and the cosmological aspect. So really deep topics that we are discussing this year, and this is for a reason because they come up this way. So you know that I do monthly energy analysis and forecasts, and you know that I have an energy training club where I weave in like specific trainings, some of which are intellectual trainings and some of which are energy trainings, matching up with those energetic weather conditions. And guess what? This month, the main topic this month is, to actually inquire about our relationships and investigate what connection actually means to us, how we connect, if there are ways for us to better connect, or also our past relationships, our inner child, our relationships with our parents, our nuclear family, and so forth, to actually gain a little sort of broader picture, broader perspective of it, so that we can decouple and let go of some of these repetitive issues in our lives. And many of you use the word karma. Many of you have sort of a feeling for what karma means. I talk a lot about this. I don't want to go into the details of karma. I want to go into how it relates to our experience, to the experience of love, but also pain in our life, and how this affects our afterlife, and perhaps our future lives. So this is where we're at. If you have any questions, I would love for you to use the question button. So in this workshop, I would like to discuss karmic aspects with you, but in relation to people in our life and how we relate to people and the consequences of, like, say, traumatic relationships or happy relationships, what sort of the effect into the afterlife is, and into future lives perhaps. What I do not want to discuss is individual issues that you have or that you're having with particular individuals. All right, so I would like you to discipline yourself here because this is a very popular topic. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you're more than welcome to share and to ask questions in the commentary section here. But I have so many workshops about karmic relationships, about twin souls, about soulmates, about all these these sort of romantic aspects of karmic relationships that this is not the place for it. Okay, here I would like to discuss with you in the manner of all the workshops this year the bigger perspective, the universal perspective. What happens if we have a really bad relationship with someone and we don't reconcile in a lifetime, and do we have to like meet that person again? Questions like that. Yeah, so if you have questions like that, that's wonderful. Then please ask them. So in this workshop, we will discuss the karmic aspects with significant people in your life. And the problem with this is that most of us try to avoid negative experiences. So, we talk about life and, also karma a lot of times in form of sort of punishment, perhaps, or in form of I don't deserve this, or I deserve this or that. Yeah, so let's go a little deeper there. What do we deserve? Do we have the right to deserve happiness? Do we have the right to deserve love? Yeah, do we deserve pain? Those are all like big problems that come to us when we start investigating and inquiring about truth, because from like a sort of human perspective, it doesn't really make sense to experience pain, and a lot of times our pain makes no sense to us. Maybe we can connect with that when we see other people or families and so forth. We're usually pretty good with identifying, the stuff in other people, but when it comes to ourselves, we do have a hard time identifying what these particular experiences in our life are for. Yeah, like what the purpose of them is. And obviously, there's without like a spiritual education and initiation where you actually learn to gaze into the spiritual world, it's quite difficult to understand that things such as purpose of life, and how to sort of strive, how to evolve yourself into a place that you and your ego self all agree to. Okay, so this is a distinction that I'm making here that we're going to pick up on later. So the solution, just in general, is embracing our life's experiences as part of our higher self's plan. Now, when I say higher self, I'm clearly referring to a higher authority, but I'm not referring to higher authority outside of us. This is very important. So regardless of what your spiritual beliefs are or religious beliefs are, I think that's a common denominator where we can meet. Yeah, so your higher self, which is basically so that the part of you that is unchanging, eternal, and infinite, that is most people would, without spiritual education, would just call it soul, okay, or spirit. Yeah, these are all words that have very important meanings, but without the spiritual education, you just basically call them all one. That starts to refine after investigating this a little bit more. But the higher self really is just what it says. It's the higher self. It's like sort of the more evolved version of you, the part of you that, and we can all feel this part, yeah, that is kind of connected with purpose, maybe even destiny, and the bigger destiny of not just yourself, but humanity, and maybe even the solar system or whatever, like where you feel like this feels right, this feels true, this feels like something that I need to follow, this resonates with me. Yeah, there's an attraction here, and this comes from deep from within. And typically, we just call this the higher self because it is a part in us that is not influenced by the ego's agenda. Yeah. So in the first stages of our awakening, we call this our true self. Yeah, because at that stage of our journey, it's important for us to realize that we have something like a false self. Yeah, so we learn about the duality of our ego through, basically contrasting the two different selves that we feel. Yeah, the the one that has sort of a good connection with higher values and goals, and then the one or the other one, the lower self, the ego self that doesn't really care in certain situations and just goes for like whatever brings the most pleasure or avoids the pain. So this is a way to contextualize, why you feel yourself in places or situations in your life where you do something that you actually don't want to do. Yeah, that's like just in general, sort of how we can frame higher self. Do you guys agree with this? Give me some feedback here. Who of you has the same problem as I? Um, Having sort of a good feel for what is true, what is good, what is beautiful, what is the right thing, to strive for, and yet finds yourself in situations where you do the opposite, or where, well, for whatever reason, but who experiences their own duality. Do you guys have that experience? Do you guys understand or know what I am referring to?
I do it again and again and
Okay,
again.
thank you, Annette. That makes me feel good because now I know I'm not alone. Okay, yeah, again and again and again. Okay, and obviously that is part of what we often experience as our inner conflict, right? So our inner conflictions are, they obviously they're complex. They can come from our, um, childhood. They can come from our negative experiences and our fears and so forth, our preferences in life. But they can also come from sort of karmic aspects, and a lot of times we're not fully aware of them. Either way, uh, we can all relate at least to that one conflict, and that is that we have a sense for what would be better. Yeah, and struggle with following through. Yeah, be it the dietary stuff or the gym that we want to go to, or being more open and more loving in life, or be it that we you know identify that we need to have better goals, or we need to tune into our needs more and stuff like that. So we all have a feel for that, and obviously the more we work with this, the easier it becomes for us to realize that not only are we not alone with this, so everybody experiences this, but it is quite in the nature of our experience, of our physical 3D experience, to feel this duality, to feel this, like higher self and lower self, and our ego and our I somewhere in between, okay, gravitating. Now, you guys are a select audience here live because you have more or less concluded in your life that it is worth striving for the higher self. Yeah, so you were trying, and you understand that your evolutionary path is basically the path of just simply striving for your higher expression. Perhaps not concluded or finished in this lifetime, spanning over several lifetimes, which includes sort of at least an intuition about, something like the afterlife and so forth. So this is something that we have to address when we talk about, or when we want to talk about the karma of love. Yeah, we have to sort of cover the ground with a few basics, yeah, before we can answer that. Some of these basics have to do with us recognizing that there is something like a physical reality and a spiritual reality that is somewhat different than the physical reality. All right, so as a sort of a short code word for that, we usually talk about, like being, a soul with a body, or seeing ourselves as a soul with a body, or, some people see themselves as a body with a soul. Some people see themselves as a body with no soul. All right, so there's like different gradients of this, but what we mean when we talk about spiritual reality, okay, is basically, the somewhat of an imagination, or instinct, or inspiration that, we're not just physical. So there's something in us, and we usually call this consciousness, that seems to be detached, or at least able to detach from the physical reality. And that's then really what someone who goes on to this spiritual awakening, and then later the spiritual initiation process, sets out to do, namely to explore that. And ultimately, we can come to the conclusion, like all humans before us, and 8,000 years of spiritual science, of spiritual wisdom, written down and handed over from one generation to another, that there must be another reality other than just the physical reality. Okay, and so in our modern language, we call this the afterlife, and that then comes with a bunch of important questions that we will illuminate here today before we go into our today's inquiry, namely the karma of love. Why? Because in order to answer or to even look into the karma of love, we first have to investigate what is love and what is karma, and understand that these questions about love, about karma, about happiness, and all these kind of what we call higher vibratory goals in life, that those are fundamentally spiritual questions. So talking about love, which does not just include the romantic love or the sexual love that most people are referring to, but love, as a state of being, is an extremely spiritual, if not the most important spiritual question or discussion. All right, so let's get started in our discussion here and investigate this together. What is love, guys? What is love? And again, not just a physical, romantic love, but what is love for you? In your words, how do you recognize love? How do you express love? How do you know it's love? What is love?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. For me, love is something to do with it's unconditional. You don't have to be in a certain way or do certain things to be loved. Or if it's another person, they don't have to be in a certain way to be loved.
All right, so you just brought up something like being loved. Okay,
Yeah.
being loved. Um, we all want to be loved, right?
Yeah.
Right, right, right. Everybody, please.
Yes.
Everybody wants to be loved.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start there. Why? You the attribute unconditional is a very complex one, and I would like to talk about that as well. But let's first establish why we want to be loved. You can go ahead, Annette.
Yeah.
Describe.
It's love. Love. If you feel loved, you expand. You can expand. You can feel safe. Um, yeah.
And like you said, you
I
don't have
have
to
to
be anybody. You don't have
no,
to be anything. You can just
And
be yourself.
and it opens up. You open yourself up, and you can express yourself, be creative, and yeah,
Can you not do that without being loved?
it's harder
Why?
because I can feel a restriction if I do something and know that people will punish me for it, even if I know it's good for me. I have to overcome that.
Okay, so there's a fear there. Okay, so
Yeah,
the
yeah,
restriction
yeah.
is a fear
If I'm
that you.
dependent on other people's love.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, we're already getting there. You guys are good. Okay. Two sentences and we're already in the problem, of wanting to be loved. Okay. So first you described, okay, I'm just paraphrasing here. You want to be loved because it gives you, to a degree, it gives you freedom. That's what I heard you say, the
yes,
freedom
yeah, yeah,
to be creative, to have an open heart, to not having to be anybody or anything in a particular way. I don't know if you actually, I don't remember if you actually said that, but I also heard that there is no fear of being judged, no fear of being
yeah, yeah,
punished.
yeah,
Okay, but there's something, and trust. I think you also mentioned the word trust. So
yeah,
there's a generally something that feels expansive for us and reassuring. Yeah, that is okay to be me. Is love the only thing that can get us there? It's the only. It's an opinion question or a reflection question. What do you think?
mm, I think love is the highest, uh, yeah, highest vibratory. So that's, but I think you can get there with other, yeah,
You think there's gradients of it, like
yeah,
a
yeah,
scale,
yeah,
maybe?
yeah.
Hmm.
You can feel
So,
if you feel, yeah, acceptance. It can
so,
help you move forward if there's something you want to express.
so, so something like the more love, the more freedom, the more
Yeah,
reassurance, the more trust. Kind of like
yeah,
that.
yes,
Yeah. So it's not a black and white thing.
no,
Hmm. And I mean, it was you, Annette, so I'm going to ask you now. You make the distinction between external love, so love coming from the outside. Uh, does that mean that there's also a love that can come from the inside?
yes,
Would you
yeah,
like to describe that a
yeah.
little bit, or
For me,
anybody here, please
mm,
join in.
for me, it's the feeling I have in my heart. I can feel, yeah, love or grace. Or, yeah, then I feel reassured in myself. I don't
Yourself.
have to be dependent on anyone from the outside.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Have you
that's
ever had?
actually very that's stronger for me.
Have you always had it?
No, yeah, it has always been there. I'm sure, but I have forgotten it or neglected it
Mhm.
for a big period of my life until I found it again. Yeah,
And how does that help to feel inner love?
it tremendously.
Could you say? I mean, I'm just following your train of thoughts here,
Yeah,
and I'm very methodical, as you guys all know. Even though we talk about spiritual stuff, but it's very important to do this, like spiritual scientists. Okay, like take the experience, take the observations, and form something that is understandable or reproducible for other people. Would you say that there's a relationship between inner and outer love. And maybe one that, like a seesaw perhaps, that if there's very little inner love, the dependency to outer love gets greater. We need
Yes.
more love from the
Yeah.
outside. If it is that, would that be an okay statement?
Yes. It's
It,
like when you're a kid or a baby, you need more from the outside, and then you have
mhm.
to learn to grow out of that and be self. It has to come from yourself.
But does it mean that we don't need it at all? I mean,
From the
I'm
outside,
yeah,
no. Actually, I think we do. In yeah, because we are social beings.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why this
it's
this
hard
follow
not
up
to.
this follow up question here, appears on your screen. Like, what's the purpose of love? I mean, okay, let's say we all have inner love, and let's say in an ideal case, we can all feel that. Does that mean we don't no longer need to interact with one another? We no longer need love from the outside, or how does this relate?
No, the more love you feel, the more you share it or can share it. Yeah,
Okay, so there's a sharing component here.
yeah.
So on from the inner perspective, the perspective of wanting to be loved, there's a desire to feel free, expansive, reassured, um, trusting, and all that, right? So this is the positive experience that we have with love. The positive side of love is that we feel, sort of um, more open, yeah, and that we can love more. Really, what I hear you say is like, when I
Yeah,
am feeling loved, I can love more.
yeah,
I can be more open. I can be more trusting. I can be more free, less afraid. And now you say you can share. You can share more.
yeah. Then you feel you want to share the love, or yeah,
Okay. Okay. So it kind of
that's
radiates.
yes,
It radiates.
yeah,
So that so there's something that is going on, guys. Can you follow me here? I want you to really feel into the nature of love, not the romantic love, but the resonance of that. There's something
mm,
about that the way it metabolizes within ourselves. Yeah, is at first we want to get it. Why? Because it kind of fills us up. It does something to us. It allows us to expand, allows us to open up, and then we want to share it.
yeah,
You guys notice that? Anybody else? These dynamics are very important to understand about the resonance of love. Yeah, because it is the energetic quality of it is expansive. It means it wants to grow. It wants to evolve. It wants to, yeah, expand. Okay.
Can you say that both parts is equal?
You mean inner
In
love and outer love?
yeah, it depends on each other in a way,
Yeah.
like the
So I mean,
seesaw.
yeah, like the seesaw. The thing
Yeah,
is, it's really not like a mathematical equation. Okay. That's the
no.
problem that we're having. Obviously we use things like seesaw and two-dimensional infographics and stuff like that to visualize things, but it really isn't that way. Um, from a mathematical perspective, what's probably the closest to how this actually works is exponential or logarithmic. Do you know what I mean? So I hear what you're saying, Annette. You're asking, well, is the ideal to keep it in balance?
Mm, yeah.
But that contradicts what I just said prior to you asking this. I said the energetic quality and the nature of love is to expand, is to evolve, is to grow.
Mm, yeah.
So being in a neutral state about it, like say, I mean, you're saying this, from like an like sort of ego self perspective, right? You say like, I don't want to be dependent on anybody else's love. I want to be independent. I want to be free. I want to be neutral, right? And so the best thing is to keep it in balance, right? Like I love myself enough, okay, that I can sustain myself, but I don't want to be dependent on other people,
I can
outer
hear
love.
when you, yeah, I can hear when you say that, then you can't evolve really.
Yeah, yeah, you can
I,
keep yourself in a place somewhere. You can
yeah,
keep yourself in a stagnant place.
yeah, I can hear that.
And in the electrification and etherization workshop series, we've learned that trying to keep ourselves in a stagnant place is actually a devolution.
Mm,
Okay, so
yeah,
in the universal law of how everything go in nature goes, there is no still stand. If you're not growing, you're basically decaying.
yeah,
Okay, at least on some level, you know. Um, so there is something there that, especially with love, and it's the same with freedom and truth, by the way. Yeah, that we need to consider a little more closely. Yeah, Annette, with one end, you were very helpful here in coming up with sort of an overview of how love behaves. Yeah, but there is a love behaving inside of us, and then there's a love, as standing as itself. That's the same with truth. Okay, when we talk about perception issues, we're investigating how truth in us behaves. Yeah, how good are we in actually discerning truth? But does that change truth itself? No, truth itself is not changed by us developing a more refined relationship with it. It's the same with love. And it's the same with freedom, by the way. But the dynamics of us developing that relationship, okay, and what it takes to do that, like how we even get there, and sort of what is needed to develop a relationship with love, for example. That's the higher path, basically. Not higher as in like up there, but as in like you have to work for that one. Yeah, you can come into this world. You get your ego for free. Remember, you don't have to work for your ego. That's the universe's insurance policy, that you survive the one lifetime. Okay, at least physically. Um, then you have your parents who love you, and you can sort of go out into your life and say, okay, well, I came into this life, my parents loved you, I got that for free as well, didn't have to do anything for that, and now I want the rest of my life to be that way, so I deserve to be loved, I deserve happiness and all that, and that's my entitlement. Yeah, do you guys think that that's how life works?
No,
Do you
I
think
don't.
that that's how love works? We
No,
all know that life doesn't work this way. Okay, that's why I
no,
said it with a slight sarcastic undertone. But does love work this way? Can we claim it? Can we like say, "Oh, I deserved it. I'm entitled to it," or is it something that we need to work for?
that's something you need to work for. That's how I feel.
Yeah, so maybe not in its essence, because we can feel the essence, the absoluteness of it,
Hmm.
but in the expression, in the interaction. So this is the interesting part here, and the distinction that needs to be done with love is that we have a love that we experience subjectively, and there's like a very pure love that we all feel in ourselves, and a lot of times this is why we go back to inner child issues, because there was either distortion there as a child, yeah, that didn't allow us to fully feel it, or like a trauma happened or something and destroyed it. You could still call that a distortion. So some people are born with, basically no love. Yeah. And some people are born with love, like say parental love, and then something happens that takes that away. And some people are born with it. They get it from their parents, but then they get this harsh awakening when they go out into their adult life, and they realize, wow, I mean, people are not really willing to give me love without me doing anything for it, right? So there is a kind of love that we experience as work. Okay, that's what you just mentioned, what you just referred to. Um, the question is that the same one that you talked about in the beginning as unconditional love? What does unconditional even mean?
Yeah, that there is no conditions. Yeah, that's
Okay, so what if I said to you, well, Anita, okay, you, like everybody else, basically has unconditional love in them. Okay. There's no restriction whatsoever in your life that
mm.
prevents you from expressing it to others. How do you feel about that? You would resist that, right? You would say,
Yeah,
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 yeah, but,
yes.
right?
But that's I think that's, yeah, that's part of why I came here to overcome that, to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's like you said, it's a very high, um, it's a higher task.
Yes, it is.
Obviously we can get through life, sort of standing still, keeping everything safe, and working on self-love and all that. That's wonderful and also needed. It's a prerequisite. But there is something that can be felt, that is missing. Okay, so this quality of love that we talked about earlier from a vibratory standpoint, wanting to expand, wanting to grow, wanting to evolve, all right, that expresses through our relationships, that expresses through how we relate to others. That is something that we can only learn through relationships. Okay. Now, you guys, for the most part, have accepted that there is something like an afterlife, that there is something like a spiritual reality. So I don't want to go all the way back there. Okay. But now let me ask you a question. Even if haven't really formed a full sort of roadmap of the afterlife yet, but you believe in something like future lives, like a reincarnation. Yeah. And if there's reincarnation, then there's also something like an in between life. So somehow, just like when you come from work and you change your clothes and, you have to shift gears and so forth, the same occurs, between lives. We talked about this in the awakening workshops. So there's a time that we spend not in the physical, in between lives. And that's a lot, that's subject to a lot of spiritual and esoteric and religious texts. The Book of the Dead, you find that in a lot of different religious traditions. So I don't really want to go there. I think we're all on the same page here that there is something like an afterlife, but not necessarily the next life yet. Okay, so let's just for simplicity's sake imagine it this way. So you have this specific physical life that you're in right now. Then there's a process that occurs in the spiritual reality, some kind of, metabolizing, some kind of like harvesting, or some kind of like working with all these experiences that you made in this lifetime, and then formulating sort of a task list for the next life. Yeah. Something like that. Is that something that you can all work with as an imagination right now? Yeah, where you go sort of into a dream-like state, or trance-like state, with no body, and where all, your experiences that you gathered in the physical life, sort of like a class or a course that you went through, need to be integrated. Need to be integrated into your spiritual reality, and then out of that, then comes the desire to reincarnate, and also basically the marching orders, like what it is that you would like to address in the future life. Can you guys all work with that imagination?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, so this is arbitrary, because in this, we don't have the time here to investigate all the, what happens to your physical body, what happens to your etheric body, to your astral body, what happens to your consciousness self when you die. We have lots of different workshops for that. Okay, so we came to the conclusion that that we refine, grow, ennoble, expand, evolve, and share love through our relationships. Now, let me ask you a very important question. Do you think that that is something that you can only do in a physical life? Or is that something that you can also do or continue in the spiritual reality? In other words, do you need a physical life experience to express, refine, ennoble, evolve, love, your capacity for love through relationships? Do you need a physical experience for that?
I'm going to
And
say no.
okay, okay, so
Love is where we
elaborate.
come from. I feel like that's where we come from, even if we don't feel that when we come here. When we tap back into that um, expansion and that all encompassing knowing feeling, um, I believe that comes from not being physical. Although we express it, we can learn to express it.
Right. So we know it's in us.
Yes.
Okay. But we've already established a problem. The problem is, even if you really believe in it, how often in your daily life do you act accordingly? We've already established
Mm,
that that's the duality that we all have.
yes.
Yeah. So it's almost like the ideal. Okay. We know
Yes.
we have it in us, and that's why I assigned it to our higher self. So our higher self knows that. Okay. But in our physical life, we're somewhat disconnected from it. And it's like we've been sent to a training course, like, okay, now go do. Okay, yeah, go do. Yeah, go express it. Go refine it. Go work it out. Go figure it out. Okay, so yes, we've already established that, Cindy, that we all have it in us, but our ability to translate that, I mean, guys, on a scale from 0 to 100, yeah, percentage wise, in your personal life, what do you guys think? Let me just do this like sort of impromptu poll here. How much of your 3D life right now is an expression of divine unconditional love? And your awake time, like not your sleeping time, but how good do you think you are in, you know, embodying divine love, this unconditional love that Aneta first brought up, or that Cindy just elaborated on? give me percentages.
I'm going to say 5. I'd like to say more, but honestly, probably 5 to 10%.
That's pretty good self-assessment, Cindy. Same for me.
And for myself.
It's important that we establish that with ourselves, because in there we can actually experience our own duality. You know,
I'm wondering if we only talk about people, or we can talk about pets and nature and things like that.
we can talk about what I didn't understand the word. The
Yeah,
last two words.
I mean that if I think about unconditional love and expression, it's easier for me to, if I think about animals and nature and flowers and things like that, I can much more feel the unconditional love.
Feel it or express it. I mean, there's two different sides to it. We've already established this, right?
Okay,
There's the being loved and the loving. Okay, so the action of love.
okay.
I mean,
Expression.
but I do understand the question that is implied, and that is, can we express love toward, nature, like minerals, plants and animals? Absolutely. That will count into for me, from my understanding, that does count, in the expression of love. But the expression of love is actually the showing up with love, like the actual doing it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and doing it, like, okay, you can love your crystal. You're not doing anything to it. You're revering it, or you're putting it on your altar, and you're cleaning it, and that's how you express the love. Okay. The love for plants is like caring for them, talking to them, giving them what they need. Yes, I agree. Those are expressions of love. They count, but they're all physical. Okay, so the question was, do we need the physical to express love, or can we do this without? Can we do this in the afterlife? Like, can we do this later? Yeah, that's a question, really. Like, do we have to do this now while we're alive, or can we do this later? Any more thoughts about that?
I guess the question is, how does it get reflected back to where we understand it as love?
Very good. Okay, so you're bringing in another dimension here. That's the reflection. How do we know? How do we? Does it come back to us? Is there like an exchange, or is there something like, where it kind of circulates? Very good. That's a question. It's not an answer, but it is a good question. So maybe there is.
Can I ask a silly question here? Hi.
Hey.
What about the physical form being needed to express love rather than just acknowledge the feeling of it?
Right. That was the question. That was my question.
Oh, okay, then I'm stuck. Sorry.
Yeah. The question is, do you believe that you need the physical expression? Do we need
Oh,
the
so
physical
okay, yeah,
life to express, refine, evolve, grow, love? Our ability, our capacity to express love.
I don't see how you would express it if you weren't in the physical form to consciously put it into action, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so what's your opinion then? What's your thought?
My opinion is that you need the physical to express love for that final stage, for it to be transmute it into its fullest form.
Okay. All right. That's one perspective. I'm taking this right now. I'm taking all your guys' thoughts. There's a workshop, okay, not a lecture. Keep going, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Mandy.
Hi, Jona, Matthew here. Apologies for
Hi.
joining late. What came up for me when you asked the question was, I think for me, is love transcends the body, mind, environment, and it depends on who's answering the question within me. If that resonates in the sense of, I resonated that the physical is, for me, the physical has been part of me understanding love, but it's a perception of the feeling of love, but there's multiple layers and multiple perceptions in what we've been taught of what the word love means. And
Right.
my journey has been able to actually separate them and see them all in their own uniqueness, if I can say that. But also know when I'm feeling or expressing, sometimes I need to express love physically, but sometimes I need to feel it more etherically,
Matthew,
and dancing between them.
we talked about this in the beginning, and we agreed on like, just for the simplicity's sake, call it inner love and outer love, or
Okay.
the love that you feel within yourself, and the love, which is, sort of given. That is something that you can feel, that's unconditional, that is there, and depending on our level of trauma and conditioning and all of that, it's distorted. And we all agree that for most of our life, 90% roughly, that's what the community here concluded, we're not actually that good. 90% of our life, we're not actually expressing that fully. Okay. So then my question was, okay, do we need the physical life experience to learn to refine that, to learn to expand that, to learn to, become better at expressing it, basically, living up to the ideal of love. I'm not talking about societal ideals. Those we've all excluded those in the beginning. That we're not talking about romantic, the understanding of romantic love, but that we talk about the actual experience of love. Okay, uh, that we are we here in this physical life, like a training course, like a class or whatever, to work on that. Okay. And the question was, can we only do this in interaction with other people? Yeah, like inner love, sure, we can all feel that, but our issue is the expression of that. Okay, in interaction with others. So it is obviously the interaction with others that we need in order to improve on that. Okay. Cindy brought in, the aspect of reflection. You did too. Yeah, like there's something, like there's an interaction, there's an exchange that occurs. And my question was, do we need the physical experience for that?
My personal answer is yes. We're
Okay,
answering today, the physical has been what enabled me to experience it.
thank you.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
yeah,
So we're
I got to
collect.
the I got to the end of the I had to apply the learnings in the physical.
Yeah, and this is then what our segue to the karma of love. Is like, okay, how does that come about? How do we learn? So thank you, Matthew. That's the next segment here. Okay, but your opinion or your thoughts about, like the importance of this physical life in the process of learning how to express love, and basically, refine, expand, evolve, our capacity for love, and our, just the overall sort of embodiment of love. Um, we do need the physical life for that. Okay, so I heard that. Okay, so we have different views here, and I want to collect them a little bit, because these this moment where you are contemplating about those kind of questions is where it all happens, guys. Okay, it's not about finding the right answer. It's about really going deep within and asking yourself that, and as really a prerequisite to enter the discussion. Well, then what's the karma of love? Okay, but let's first establish that. Do we have any more views on whether or not we need the physical life experience to evolve, expand, grow, and with it better, embody, this deep unconditional divine love that we somehow all feel within us, but that is spiritual of nature? Do we need the physical experience? I mean, there's a lot of
I,
like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I, no, I would say yes. I, I think so. I feel that it's needed for the physical experience.
Or the physical experience is needed for refining your love.
Yeah, and you asked about the pain, and I feel that it's needed for with pain and all the things
Hmm.
to expand and evolve and
Yeah,
yeah.
so we discussed in the beginning. So for those of you who came later, like you got to accept that we've already talked about this for a year, for an hour here. So we've established, what love feels like. We've established, or we can feel the difference between something like what we call an inner love that we're kind of born with, but that we have difficulties to express or to live in our physical life in form of relationships and what we then further distinguished as outer love. Okay, and we've further concluded that there's a relationship between inner love and outer love in sort of a simplistic way, that the more inner love we feel, the less dependent we become on outer love. In other words, the less inner love we can feel or connect with or express, the more dependent we are on outer love. Those are very, very important spiritual insights. Okay, so now we're coming to the question, what happens when there is no love in our life? Okay, so we just collected opinions about whether we believe that love is something that has to be manifested, it has to be embodied, it has to be learned to express, to be expressed in through the physical experience. Um, and most of you, like or most of your guys' contemplations are that we somehow need the physical experience for that. I would strongly agree with that. But let's further investigate that. That's just our opinion at this point. Let's keep going here in the systematic way and ask ourselves what happens in a life, in a lifetime, yeah, when you live your life with no love. What do you guys think happens to, quote unquote, your inner love then? We all know the factors that can contribute to us experiencing a life without love. I often talk about the confrontation with unlove. Okay, so we already know that that's a reality, yeah, and it's a reality for many of us. And if it's not a reality for many of us, then it's at least a big fear that we have. Some of which is related to our dependency on external love, which you have already discovered. So the more dependent you are on external love, the more afraid you are to not get it or to not have it. And just as a recap here, we've also made a distinction between wanting to be loved and the ability to express and love. You guys brought in beautiful aspects that we're now starting to uncover here, namely that there's aside from the subjective experience of love and what it does for us and what it enables us to do, we all agree it's a beautiful, expensive kind of experience, but we all have difficulties expressing it to various degrees. But that there is sort of a mystery there, and that is like, how does this work in exchange? What reflects it back to me? How do I know that I love something? How do I know that I'm being loved? Now, being loved, okay, if I was in a conference room with thousands of people and I would ask the question, raise your hand if you want to be loved. Okay, everybody would raise their hand. Raise your hand if you know how to get love. Okay, maybe half the people would raise their hand. If I would ask, well, raise your hand if you know how to love others so that they know that you love them, there would be a very few hands only. So we're discovering, we're uncovering something here that is often not aware to us, namely that most of our life we actually spent with the question, how can I get love? And that's a fundamental sort of illusion here, because when you think about the true nature of love that we discussed earlier, and how it grows, and how we refine it, how we ennoble it, how we how it evolves, okay, there really is an active part in it. And I asked you earlier, do you think you have to work for it? Do you think you're entitled for love, or do you think you have to work for it? And some of you said, well, you have to work for it. So let's look into this a little bit. So what has happened in your life if there is no love in your life? If you see your life as a life without love, what has happened there? Do you think it's a lack of external love, or do you think it's a lack of expressing love?
Can you hear me, Jona?
Whoops, could you repeat that, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes, but we can
It's
also hear
too
the
loud
rooster.
here.
Yeah, we can also hear the
Right.
rooster.
Well, my experience is that, I don't know, when you're around a lot of people who are not loving, then you're just not going to get love from them. You can be as loving as you want, and there's just some people who aren't going to respond with
Right. That's
what.
external love. That's external love, yes.
So, looking at the effect of that, there's a learning experience of not looking for it there. Uh, and just not being, if you're around it a lot, just surrounded by it, then that exchange sort of can happen, because you go back into, well, I do go into internal love. However,
hmm
I find it's kind of inhumane. It's an inhumane situation to be in it in the end, and that to grow is to understand that, but also to grow into perhaps different situation where it feels flowing.
I agree with the essence of what you're saying, Janet, not with the word choice, because inhumane is a judgment. But what I hear you say is that it doesn't feel like it's the full expression of humans. So what I hear you say is it should be that way, that humans freely exchange and give each other love.
Well,
And
it's
that's the
I guess, inhumane, or there's that experience of dehumanization, just being, people can be kind of dehumanized, and not just the lack of love, but then also things that replace it, like manipulation or control, lying, and that kind of stuff.
yeah. I mean, that's the idea. Speaking from the ideal. Okay, so the question is, when there's no love in our life, okay, and we're not discussing how that comes, that we have like hundreds of hours of workshop recordings that discuss that. We're looking at it from the perspective, Matthew, by the way, you did raise a good point there. It depends on who's asking, like what perspective. We're looking at it from the perspective of our spiritual self. We're not looking at it from the perspective of our physical ego self right now. Okay, we're looking at it from the bigger perspective. Okay, so if like if love is sort of what we can feel as the highest level of elation, expansion, evolution, okay, then that and love is basically part of the purpose of life, okay, to express it, to refine it, to ennoble it, to expand our capacity for it, okay, then what are the consequences of not actually expressing love in life? So we're not really talking about getting love, okay? Getting love is an ego concept, okay? Yeah, so love is inherent in all of us, and it is something that we can all do. So there's absolutely no restriction in us expressing love. But the reality is that, like you said, Janet, and all the many other reasons that we have illuminated in the past, there's a lot of things that can happen in the physical life that can restrict that can traumatize that can uh, distort it, that can, like all kinds of things, obviously, that can happen, to us in the course of our physical life, where we experience, let me just call it this way, unlove. Okay, so when we experience unlove, that's our subjective experience, and as a consequence, we decide not to, to stop loving others. Okay, that's usually what happens in us. Yeah, that's really the process. You go out there in the world. You had your parents. Your parents were, somewhat okay, loving you because they gave you food and shelter and advice and stuff like that, yeah, to various degrees. Okay, and you go out into the world and you say, well, I deserve love. I deserve to be loved. That's something I'm entitled to. And then it doesn't come to you the way you want it, and then you decide to, well, if I'm not getting it from the outside, then I'm not going to give it. Okay, can you guys follow me here? Okay, so that's a situation that is very common, and this is where most people actually get stuck. That they have negative experiences, they experience pain and struggle in their life with relationships, and therefore then basically close their heart. A closed heart is a person's attitude toward love, expresses a person's attitude toward love, namely, no, I'm not giving it. I'm not giving it freely. Why? Because it's too painful, or I have too much fear of experiencing pain with it, and therefore I'm not doing it. I'm relying on my inner love. Fine. Okay, some people can get a lot from there. Yeah, narcissists in a pathological way. Yeah, but for the most part, we already know that one of the qualities of love is actually in the sharing, in the radiance of it, in what is reflected back to us, and that's really what the essence of love is about. There's something very dynamic about love. Yeah, so love is not static. It is not something like a state, like a one-time state, or something that you graduate into, and then you no longer need it, or you no longer need to express it. That's not how that goes with any higher vibratory um, states of existence. They are innately expansive, which means, according to the evolutionary, or the universal evolutionary process, they strive to further expand. They strive to further evolve, ennoble, and refine. Okay, this is where we're at. And when we decide, or for whatever reasons, we don't experience love, or we decide not to express love in our lives, then we must investigate if there is a consequence, just like how we must investigate the consequences of, like, say, if there's no truth in our life, if we live our life in ego, and we avoid pain and seek pleasure, and don't ever uh, investigate truth and the nature of truth, and the ability to embody or to live in truth. There's consequences. So that is basically the segue to karma, because we all know that there are certain things that we that we experience the impulse to do. Yeah, all of us do. And we know that there's sort of a backlash to it. Okay, so this is something that we need to understand for this whole discussion of karma of love, because you know uh, the karma, as like sort of a concept of what comes around goes around. Yeah, or like unfinished business, or the eternal balance, or like just simply action and reaction. Okay, is serves us as a universal sort of balancing balancing scale. Okay, and in our modern times, we don't really like to talk about those sort of, or use those biblical terms like Judgment Day and stuff like that. Although most of us still think in those terms, but we use the word karma as a proxy for basically what goes around comes around. Yeah, then there's got to be consequences for when we decide not to love. Yeah, so what are the consequences when we decide not to love? What do you think? How does that affect your afterlife? How does that affect your spiritual reality? We already know that every thought, every sentiment, every action, every word creates an energetic reality. We already know that there's a process after our physical life where these things are getting, basically processed, metabolized, harvested, assessed, and then basically recomposed, to a new sort of life task, for the next life. Okay, so that's something that we agreed on earlier. So what's the consequence of not expressing love in our life, not allowing love in our life, or us not loving in our life? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, one thing, oh my gosh, one thing is that then we've cut off our own practice of it. We're not building that part of who we are, which is a big part of who we are. It's kind of stunted our growth. Is
Or who
one
we are
thing
to
I.
become, right? Who we are to become, like we called it the higher self, like the sort of the higher expression of ourselves. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's literally. I mean, to me, it can stunt all sorts of things. I think I think it can have uh, a chain reaction. You're stunting that, and I think it stunts how your mind can work. I think it can then stunt the physical body.
Yes, it can have effects on the physical body in that physical life, also in the future life, by the way. But yes, it can have effects on the physical body. It can have effects on the etheric, the astral, and
But you're just asking. Are you just asking how it affects physically stunts it in this experience? What is the
no,
kind of
in the afterlife,
harm
like what, like
in the
karmically,
afterlife? Yeah.
karmically, yeah, like we're talking about the karma of love. Okay, so
Well,
uh,
it aligns you with who you are. So if you're a stunted, unloving person, then
okay,
you go
yeah.
into your afterlife, you die, and that's where your soul is, right? You're still kind of stuck in, oh, I didn't really love much in that lifetime sort of energy, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. I like what you're saying, Janet. It's just difficult with the noise, but I love what you're saying. So, like unfinished business. Okay, so mission is not completed yet, so to speak. Yeah, like okay, so in this lifetime, okay, we went through all kinds of trauma and all kinds of this and that. We experienced all kinds of unlove. Okay, and as a consequence, we decided not to let other people into our lives and not express love. And fine, okay, so you die now. These relationships that you've had with these people that led to that conclusion, okay, they're sort of there, like I've asked earlier, do you think we need the physical life to actually change something about our relationships? Can we change that in the afterlife? um, what do you guys think? Let's say you had a traumatic relationship with someone, or bad childhood experiences, bad whatever, negative experiences in relationships in this physical life. Can you resolve them? Can you continue working on them in the afterlife? What do you think?
For me, I think you have to have it once again.
Mm-hmm.
You must come once again and do it a little better.
Yeah. So okay. Any more views? Any more thoughts? Thank you, Anita. What do you guys think? Do your relationships, especially like the traumatic ones, where you were not able to express love or feel loved, can you change them in the afterlife, or do they come to a standstill when you die?
Okay, let me know if this. I know this. Believe me, if you were here, that would be even worse. The part of it, isn't it that it's up to us to resolve it in ourselves in this lifetime. So if we've come to some peace in our heart about whatever state the relationship actually is in, whether
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
come to some, like face to face resolution with the person, uh, my 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 thinking and feeling is that it's our job to take a step further while we're in this lifetime and just resolve whatever. If it's
Okay.
not working, it's not working.
Right. So you bring in an important distinction. You say it doesn't necessarily have to be face to face. I can also resolve that within myself. And this is a big part of our self-healing process and so forth, to do the self-healing, and to even go into like etheric reconciliation with others and so forth. I agree with you. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that we can do in this lifetime, to resolve, like unlove in our life. But does that continue when we die? That's the question, or is this a sort of a standstill? Okay, this is the status where you're at, and now you got to relive, in your afterlife, you got to relive, all these sentiments, all these unprocessed, unhealed things in your life, all the unlove, all the untruth, and all the unfreedom in your life, until you go back and basically get a second chance. And you say yes, you can do a lot of self-healing, but you have this lifetime to do that. So with this physical life, it ends, and then there's some kind of assessment of it. Guys, I know that there's a lot of resistance in us to go this way, okay, but for any spiritual seeker, this is an extremely important contemplation. Yeah, so when you use the word karma, you better know what it means, because karma doesn't just mean consequences, but it also means consequences. Okay, so
Well,
when
could it
we
be that we have the lesson, we take the lesson of that situation. Sorry, I left my microphone on and it's really noisy. We
yeah.
take the experience and the lesson of that situation with us. It I don't know who makes the judgment whether you come back or not, but who says something's resolved or not as well. So to me, it's starting to, as you speak, seem like it's the lesson of the situation
Exactly. Yeah.
of the unreal.
Yeah, exactly. And that's our self-healing process, right? We go beyond the negative experience, and especially when they're repetitive, and we look at the patterns, and we look at what it actually is that we're resisting here. Yeah, and also like our parts and their parts, and like maybe go into making amends. The sacred self-healing course is all about that, and resolving it within ourselves, and therefore healing our aspects, our sentiments, our attitude towards an individual or humanity as a whole, okay, within ourselves during this lifetime. And we can do this on multiple levels. The more educated and experienced we are, we can do this obviously face to face. We can do this etherically. We can do this astrally if you can, so there's a lot of things that we can do depending on our perspective and ability to enter the spiritual world. But it has to be done while we are conscious, alive. Okay. Why? Why is that so? So all of you who instinctively realize that this lifetime, this physical lifetime, is actually there to do something. Okay, that's why the Sanskrit word karma translated means action. Yeah, it implies something like consequence, as in like, well, you got to do something to change it. Okay, so a more accurate understanding of karma would actually be the ability to change something. That's how I would call it. Yeah? Karma is not a punishment. It's not a consequence. It implies it, but more so, it's the opportunity to heal or to change something. It's a gift. And those lessons that come to us in our life, especially those that, those of us who are, who do think in a more spiritual way and can say, oh, this feels karmic because it keeps repeating. It doesn't matter whom I interact with, this is a pattern. Okay, so this is a very good indication that you're dealing with a karmic thing. But we also have, attractions and repulsions and stuff like that can come to us as, unexplainable sort of karmic things in our life. And you can, if you pay attention, you can realize that. So there's something that carries over. But what we forget is that there is a sort of a stage in between. Okay, so most of us can wrap our heads around reincarnation, yeah, and sort of a simplistic childlike way of thinking about it is like you die, and then the next moment you go pick a new body and you come back. But that's not how this goes. All right, there's quite a bit of time in between. Okay, the different lifetimes, and there's a very, very complex alchemical process that occurs, with all these experiences, all these lessons, all these healing processes, everything that you basically worked for, yeah, in your lifetime. In a different workshop, somebody asked, well, what happened if you have an uneventful, like you don't really have a very conscious life, you just sort of tag along and like sort of take the cookie cutter route and don't really develop a lot of consciousness. Those kind of lifetimes, they get metabolized and basically, go back into the sort of the pool, of spirit, if you will, okay, that forms, new souls and stuff. But if you, are a conscious I, if you awaken as an individual's or individuated soul self, all right, there's a record sheet that you carry around with you, um, and that serves you basically as your progress report. Okay, so when you die, there's a substantial process that happens, in really, reliving and also extracting, the progress that you've made. This is very, very important for us to understand. Okay, um, because the afterlife, and especially, the first 3 years, if you will, after you die, is basically reliving, okay, the all your sentiments, all your thoughts, all your words, all your expressions. but without, the way you rationalized it, the way, your physical body experienced it. You just relive your sentiments, your attitudes about something. Okay. And in like Christian esotericism is called, like purgatory, where you have to relive all that. That's why, this fear of ending up in hell, is really something that we need to work with, because, even if you don't believe in heaven or hell, but there is something there in us, that creates a fear of having to relive all this. And, from a spiritual scientific point of view, there was an assessment, there is a progress report that occurs, to yourself, to your higher self, if you want to imagine it this way. Yeah, where, you go all over, your life's experience, and you're like, okay, let's have a look how I did this time around. Okay. And you realize, okay, well, I didn't really do that so well. Ooh, I kind of messed up that one. you know um and that's the gift of karma, is that you then, that your higher self then comes in and says, okay, well, no biggie. We have like as many lifetimes as we want to. Let's try better next time. Okay. Let's try better next time. And out of that then forms something like a task list, like a list of duties. Okay. Yeah, a list of lessons, if you will, that this person, as per their higher self, decides, okay, to focus on or to redo for the next life, which supersedes, in a lot of cases, just sort of the natural. I mean, there's sort of a universal, natural evolutionary process that always drives you into growth, that always drives you into evolution. But this task list that your higher self comes up with, supersedes it in a way that it really focuses this life's experience and all the relationships, all the people that you meet in that life around that topic. Yeah, if you're a little older, you can, and you look back at your life, it's maybe a little easier for you to see that as sort of a thread weaving through the tapestry of your life. If you're younger, it's hard to see, harder to see. But I mean, most of you guys here are, in the middle, the mature section of your life, and you've already gathered a substantial amount of experiences. And so you can look back and you can say, um, even if it's just a mental exercise, if you don't feel the things that I am presenting to you here, but if you just follow me along and trust sort of in the educational sort of wisdom that I have, that I bring in with this. So feel yourself into your higher self. Yeah, and with those of you in the Energy Training Club, we practice this every week. And look at your life. Can you make out sort of a major theme? Would you be able to kind of pin it down to maybe one or two big themes? Those like sort of threads in the tapestry of your life that could, if you follow this sort of imagination here with your higher self creating this task list, perhaps be such a lesson, such a karmic lesson for you. Can you guys see themes in your life? Can you identify them?
Yes, I can. I have one task I have had was coming back to the grace feeling. I lost that, and then I had to learn not to take it from the outside, from the religions, but to find it in myself.
Inner love. So we
Yeah.
defined, the inner love, divine love, or grace,
Yeah.
in the beginning of this workshop. So that was one of the. So that was an important,
Mm,
sort of,
yes.
superseding, almost, like dominant. Would you say
Very.
dominant? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other threads that
Yeah.
maybe go along with that?
Yeah. There's something about having courage to
Okay.
do what I feel from my inner promptings.
Okay. You were the one
Yeah.
earlier, describing, the inner experience of love, being
Mm,
loved and loving, as feeling the freedom to do the things that you feel,
yeah.
that are so basically, I see a connection here. It's one and the same, right? Discovering or rediscovering, or, believing in it again. Yeah,
Yeah.
because for you, it's a very spiritual question, in that regard. That it actually even exists.
Yes.
Okay. And then, embodying it so that you can experience the freedom and overcome fear,
Yeah.
in form of, developing the courage to express yourself, in the world and in your relationships.
Yeah.
Mhm. And that's, really quite advanced on it, just so you know, because you can identify the necessity to discover inner love again, because you did,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it changed your life.
Yes, it did.
So that's
Totally.
easy for you now to identify. But before you did, that was hard, right?
Very. Yeah.
Until then, you were confused.
Yes, I was very painful. Very painful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But the pain was there
Yeah. To prompt me to work on it. Yeah.
to do something.
Yes.
Karma,
Yeah.
karma, right? To take action.
Exactly.
And just, here for our listeners, how long did it roughly take you?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, about 50 years.
Okay, it's good to know. Hmm.
It's a process, so it's hard to put
Yeah, yeah,
numbers.
obviously, yes.
But yeah, about 50 years.
The higher self prompting was always there,
Yes.
but the experience in your physical life was that of pain and struggle.
Yeah.
And when you shifted your perspective and changed how you go about things, when you
Yeah.
started taking different kinds of actions,
Yeah.
okay, you discovered it. You
Yeah.
discovered, something that, I guess we would call, as a catharsis, as a deep healing experience that had a massive impact on many other aspects, outlooks, relationships, and so forth of your life.
Yeah.
We call this a spiritual experience. Yeah, that's the nature of a spiritual experience. It has Matthew, it has the power to transcend pain and struggle. You said it earlier. Yeah, that is true. Love, loving, the action of love, and the awareness, the consciousness of it, living the life in love, has the power to transcend, to overcome the pain and struggle in life. And that's why we're so desperate to love, right? That's why we all want to love. The only problem is that most of us here are still in a delusion, namely that loving means getting love from somebody.
Yeah, I would also say that a big part of it for me was to learn to love myself.
Right.
Yeah.
So your karmic
It's
aspect,
easier
Anetta,
to love others, you know.
yes.
It's much harder to love one's own stuff.
Yeah. So
That was a big thing for me.
for
The
you,
change.
the lesson was pretty deep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just as a sort of a like imaginative trip here, what do you think you did in your previous lifetimes to have that kind of lesson in this lifetime? Hmm?
Yeah, I actually have some feelings about that. It was pretty bad what I did.
Probably. Hmm.
Yeah.
But in what regard? And what like how?
Uh, yeah, I was mean to others. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even
Maybe
violent.
yeah, maybe you robbed others
Yeah.
of that belief,
Yeah.
that love for
Yeah.
self. Hmm. Took away the dignity of other people,
Yeah.
you know, something like that. Well, it's just a imagination here, but it is. I agree with you. This is then sort of the retro causality of it. You know, you like recognize, okay, well, I mean, if that's my task in this life, I wonder what I must have done or not done in previous lives. You know, to have that as my main task. Either way, you know, since we already understand that there is no judgment in these things, that we have, you know, the gift of karma, you know, the opportunity to redo, to change, to heal. All right, that's just what it is. Okay, so for this particular lifetime, I don't want to go any deeper, Annette, with you, uh, but rather ask others if you can connect with something like that for yourself, if you can make out threads, patterns in your life that you can now see uh, as sort of karmic, that your higher self might have decided to focus you on in this lifetime.
Yeah, no, just to jump in and yeah, I've seen patterns. It was the ability to see my own patterns, and from
What kind of
yeah,
patterns? Your own patterns. What kind of patterns?
my like I kept on doing the same things, but I had to do them enough times to bang my head, and then I go, oh, I'd wake up, and some moment would create a wake up moment, and intensities would be variable, you know. Um, and then you see yourself, and then oh shit, I'm doing the same thing,
All right.
and
Uh,
and
like
that's
what? Like what? Selfishness, lack of empathy, lack of compassion, judgmentalism, controlling it. What kind of patterns?
just an approach to life. In my youth, I was fearless and with that youthful ignorance, and then I'd bang my head, and that gave me the wisdom to transcend to the next level. But yeah, I've had the privilege of three near death experiences, which were the extreme experiences in my world that really woke me up in perception of reality, of how I was before, and then coming out afterwards.
So what did you see there? What what did you see?
Well,
What had to be changed or healed or you know redone?
sitting here 15 years later after the first one, which was a major one, heart attack, is, for me, it was to find this meaning of love, actually, because it was something that pulled me back. Because that was the important message that I got.
So what was the insight? What was the insight, the meaning of life? Like what is the meaning of life for you since that
Well,
spiritual near-death experience?
the meaning of love,
The meaning of
because
love. Okay.
love, not love.
Okay.
Okay, it was I had a perception of what love is, and then this overwhelming feeling, which then I had to make sense of in the next experience of my journey of what was that feeling and I could never explain it. It's taken years to to get closer and closer to it. So, a word that Anetta mentioned was one of my greatest things, that is your grace meditation. The lines in there, and how I feel in that meditation, and then I get into a similar space, and I just experience the world, and I see it with love.
So,
And
a reframing of love from like what to what? From seeing it as like a physical,
yeah,
emotional experience to
it's more of a, as I say, I'm still struggling 15 years later to explain it. It's and that's why, for me, just from what I've gone through and the privilege to sit where I am now and have better questions of that, but most importantly, especially in the last 4 years, I've had no choice but to love the moment, and let the moment love me back, if I can use those words.
so inner love, like Annetta mentioned. So you
Yes,
rediscovered the a quality in you that is
correct,
that reminds of something we just did. Those are just terms. Those are just words, right? But in order to articulate it, in order to communicate it, we have to kind of come to agreements, right? The inner love, like something inside of you that is not dependent on the outside.
correct.
But also, I happen to know this, and Matthew, about you, also the translation of it, right? I mean, it's you can sit on a mountaintop and strive for maximum inner love all day long. That's not really going to refine, your ability to grow it.
Well, this is why it's the implementation of it,
Yeah, that's the physical part,
and
right? Not
and
physical as
and
in
that's why
body, but here in this
well,
in
in
the
this 3D
interaction with others.
experience, yes,
Yeah, in interaction with
you know what
others.
I
Okay.
mean. When you walk up to someone, and there may be someone that you're a beggar on the street, just something we can all relate to,
Hmm.
and all your biases come up, and you go, no, that's a human. I love him. He's in my space, and taking it to that sort of a level is, but implementing it. And I've walked the streets of the world the last 3 years, and it's been amazing how my life experience is just reflected back.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, thank you for making the effort to find the words to share that. Okay. It is a way to express love, Matthew. Okay. Sharing our wisdom, our insights is part of that. It's obviously a very, or can be, for those who have experienced inner love, very moving spiritual and intimate experience, but it's another thing to actually radiate that, to bring that out into the world and share that with others, whether we know them or not, whether, you know, they belong to like the people that we would want to be friends with or not. Any more karmic contemplations here, things that you can see as a sort of a karmic thread in your life, lesson that your higher self wanted you to learn?
I have thinking a little about how which of the patterns I have mostly have problems with, and it had been physical pain
Mm-hmm.
and also my defensiveness, anger,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I'll say like Annette and Matthew that I have really struggled with inner love, and it's I feel that it's the most important for me to learn, yeah, more about, and then I also think it's something with spiritual awakening. I have in my life not spent much time on spiritual things, and yeah, it feels really important for me.
Thank you, Annette, for sharing. How do you relate anger, the feeling, the internal experience of anger, to love?
It feels like I love myself with all my stuff, also my anger, and
Okay, that would be a definition of the ideal of the unconditionality, right? Like, but the actual subjective experience, if we look at our expressions, the practical expressions, the implementation, as Matthew called it, or the integration, or translation, or that part, the experience of anger, how does that relate to love?
mm,
It
mm,
doesn't go together, right? I mean, we all know
no,
that, right?
no,
Yeah.
no, it does not go together.
But the question is, go a little deeper here. How does it relate? These are
Mm,
really good sort of impulses for you to think about and feel into.
mm,
All of us. Yeah. We're
mm,
we're at the 2 hour mark here now, and I can see that in order for us to really answer those questions with individual people in our life, individual relationships in life, what happens in our future lives, and so forth, if we don't resolve relationships, if we don't heal the wounds, that we experience in our lifetime, in our physical lifetime, material lifetime, what happens in our future lives, we will need to discuss that in the second part.
mm.
So at this point, Annette, I'm not leaving you alone with this. You're
No,
at a
no,
very, very cool point here, namely, how do my expressions, okay, yeah, so we're going beyond ego now. All of you've already uncovered what your issues are, okay, where
mm,
you're expressing unlove. I call it
yeah,
unlove. Yeah? Anything that's not
yeah,
love and that goes against love, that doesn't go together with love, okay, what is true, what is beautiful, what is expansive, what is evolving, what is healing, goes with love. Yeah, that goes with love. But
yeah,
things that are hostile, that are aggressive, that are selfish, that are controlling, that are judgmental, that are fearful, that are shameful, that are guilt ridden, do not go with love. Yeah, all those lower vibratory states that we are so familiar with, that we call our ego states. Okay, I want all of you to contemplate two things for our next part 2 workshop of Karma of Love. Number 1, continue thinking about patterns in your life, dominant patterns in your life. And number 2, the realistic assessment of your expressions. Not your insights about how it should be and how you're getting better at it. We're not talking about this. We're seeing it from the higher self's perspective here. Yeah. We're doing sort of an intermittent progress report with ourselves. Where are we in that process of refining, evolving, expanding, ennobling our expressions of love? Yeah, evolving our capacity for love, our ability to freely express love, to freely give love, keyword unconditionality, and to allow the exchange, the conscious exchange of love in our life. So not like as a confession, but really as a sort of a self-progress report, guys. How many of my daily expressions, including my thoughts, my sentiments, yeah, my emotions, yeah, not just the outer actions, also the inner stuff. How far am I there? Why am I having you do this as homework? I can tell you why. Because that is the process that you're going to spend probably 1,000 years with, okay? After you leave this particular physical life and have to process all these things. So it's not just that love can help us heal and transcend, pain and struggle. That's one aspect of this. But there's also the aftermath. Yeah? What happens with, you evolving, you fulfilling the promise that you made to the divine and to your higher self to express or to find your higher expressions. Yeah. So there is a progression there that goes beyond this lifetime. And when we talk about future lifetimes next time, when we talk about are we meeting the people that we had a significant experience with in this lifetime, are we meeting them again in the next lifetime? How is that like the contemplation we had earlier, like well, it looks like this and this is my task in this life, and I wonder, what that is a consequence of. What did I do in my previous lifetimes? Possibly, the retrocausality of that, to needing this lesson right now, yeah, for my higher self to choose this as the main task for this lifetime, and perhaps also future lifetimes. Do we have to relive the pain and the struggle, the same pain and the struggle over and over and over again? Questions like that. That is all going to be the subject of part 2. So I want to thank you all for being here, for sharing, for going through the effort of finding the right expressions, or not right, there's no right or wrong, but to actually making an effort to find expressions and to freely share your wisdom, your love with all of us here attending today. That is also an expression of unconditional love. I'm looking forward to part 2. And until then, stay conscious, and I see you soon. Thank you, everyone.